The show begins with a high school student Gun working at a bar. While carrying out his duties, he's abruptly pulled into a poker game by his boss, Mr. Jung. The young man agrees to play, and it soon becomes evident that he's a master of the game. He cleverly predicts his opponent's next move and ends up winning, shocking everyone. In another scene, we see a young woman named Seyoung who has just returned to Korea after spending some time studying in the US. Her childhood best friend Taeha meets her at the airport and drives her to her parents' home. On the way, Taeha begins flirting with her and even asks her to marry him. However, Seyoung makes it clear that she has no romantic feelings for him. The next morning, she heads to her new school with great excitement. The teacher introduces her to the class and asks her to take a seat next to Gun. As Seyoung sits down, she attempts to strike up a conversation with him, even complimenting his looks, and asks whether he has a girlfriend. But he completely ignores her. During lunch break, Seyoung befriends some girls and asks them about Gun. They tell her that his nickname is Hot Zombie and that he's very difficult to communicate with. He used to be outgoing in middle school, but then something happened that caused him to become so withdrawn. They also reveal that his family is struggling financially, so Gun works multiple jobs at night. As a result, he doesn't have time to eat and frequently falls asleep in class. In the evening, Gun is working at a convenience store when he notices a couple of teenagers talking about gambling. He tries to advise them against wasting their money on such things, but the boys are offended and one of them grabs him by his neck and attempts to hit him. Right at that moment, Seyoung unexpectedly appears and uses her taekwondo skills to fight off these guys, causing them to run away. Seeing this, Gun is impressed, but he still remains cold towards her. Seyoung invites him to dinner knowing that he works hard and barely has time to eat. However, he immediately rejects her offer. She then asks him if she's attractive, but Gun doesn't respond and walks away. The next day at school, a bored Seyoung goes to the music room and starts playing the piano, which she turns out to be very good at. Right then, Gun shows up and is impressed by her music skills and starts showering her with compliments. This delights our heroine, and she happily follows him outside. She asks him to have lunch with her, but he again refuses. Seyoung states that he's gonna go through a growth spurt and he should eat more. But Gun teases her by saying that he's much taller than her and she should focus on her own growth. During their conversation, he receives a phone call which causes him to panic and leave. He rushes to the hospital to check on his sister, who is battling leukemia. Turns out she had a relapse and requires a bone marrow transplant to survive. However, the procedure is very expensive and the family can't afford it. To make matters worse, Gun's father has been disabled due to a recent accident. He was a famous poker player who eventually lost everything to gambling and became an alcoholic. This is why Gun has to work multiple jobs just to provide for his family. The next day, he falls asleep in class as usual, but Seyoung tucks him in to make him more comfortable. When he asks why she's so kind to him, Seyoung responds that fate has brought them together. However, Gun doesn't believe in fate and says that he doesn't have the privilege to think about these sort of things. After this, he proceeds to leave but forgets to take his cell phone. Seyoung then chases after him and hands him his phone outside. At the same time, we see Taeha has come to the school and many girls are asking for his autograph. Turns out he's the current national poker champion and is quite famous. Taeha notices Seyoung and approaches her, but is surprised to see Gun as well. It's then revealed that the two men already know each other, and Gun has defeated Taeha several times in poker. As a result, they have a long history of rivalry and hatred for each other. In the evening, Gun starts working at a new place, which is an illegal gambling club. He doesn't play, but works as an errand boy because the pay is higher than other jobs. Unfortunately, trouble arises on his first day when a difficult client accuses him of dealing him rigged cards. Gun tries to explain himself, but the man insults him and then brutally hits him. Meanwhile, Seyoung is walking down the road alone when she notices a group of teenagers robbing a drunk man. She quickly scares them away using her taekwondo skills and proceeds to help the man. Turns out, he's none other than Gun's father. Seyoung doesn't know it yet, and she decides to escort him home. Shortly after, Gun returns home with bruises all over his face. He's shocked to see Seyoung at the door and discovers that she helped his father. He then invites her in and thanks her for everything. Seyoung offers to take care of his injuries, and this time he accepts. While she's tending to his wounds, she can't help herself and kisses him. Seyoung immediately realizes her mistake and apologizes, but Gun responds by kissing her back. The next day, he takes her to his job at the bar and introduces her to Mr. Jung. The latter is surprised and remarks that Gun has never brought a girl before. He then talks to Seyoung, saying that Gun is an excellent poker player, but has no desire to play professionally. Jung shows her a pamphlet for the national poker tournament with a $1 million prize. He asks her to persuade Gun to participate, as it would solve all his financial problems. Later on the way home, Gun opens up to Seyoung about his life. He explains that his sister has leukemia and requires expensive treatment, which is why he's been working several part-time jobs. Seyoung feels bad for him and tells him he's doing a great job. Soon, they arrive in front of her house. Gunn notices the tall building and realizes they come from different financial backgrounds. He feels bad, but Soo-young hugs him from behind and cheers him up. Just then, Tae-ha notices them from a distance and gets furious. The following day, Gunn and his dad go to see his sister at the hospital. The doctor urges them to collect money for the treatment, putting them in a difficult situation. When the siblings are alone, Gunn's sister advises him not to push himself too hard. She says she doesn't want to be a burden to him and asks him to give up. However, he scolds his sister and tells her to stop talking like that. Although Gunn appears strong in front of her, he cries afterwards and blames himself for being a loser. After leaving the hospital, he heads to his secret job at the underground gambling club. Unfortunately, this time, Tae-ha follows him and discovers his workplace. The jerk immediately calls the cops and gives them the address of the gambling club. Shortly after, police show up and arrest everyone inside the place. While Gunn is being detained and shoved into a police car, he spots Tae-ha watching him with a sinister smile. In the next scene, Soo-young becomes concerned about Gunn as his phone has been switched off. She goes to the bar and asks Mr. Jung about his whereabouts. The latter has no idea either, but he soon receives a call from the police informing him that Gunn has been arrested. Turns out our hero didn't want to bother his father, so he gave his boss's number as his guardian. Soon after, Mr. Jung and Soo-young arrive at the police station. She attempts to check on Gunn, but he's too embarrassed to see her. Mr. Jung then signs some papers and bails him out. But the case is not dismissed, and Gunn must appear in juvenile court in a few days. Afterward, an angry Soo-young confronts Gunn about his actions. He responds that he didn't engage in gambling and only worked there as an errand boy. However, Soo-young tells him that he shouldn't have to bear such a heavy burden alone. She urges him to enter the poker competition where he can earn money honestly. Gunn hesitates because he doesn't want to end up like his father, who lost everything due to gambling. But she insists that he's not his father and asks him to think about it. Days later, Gunn appears in court, and it seems like he'll receive a harsh sentence. When the judge questions him, he explains that he was simply running errands for the players, fetching cigarettes and alcohol. He claims that he only did it to support his family and take care of his sick sister. He then assures the judge that he's learned his lesson and he will never set foot in such a place again. The judge sees his sincerity and decides to let him off easy this time. So as punishment, he gives Gunn a light sentence of 100 hours of community work. In the evening, our hero pays a visit to his sister in the hospital, and they have a heartfelt conversation. She asks him to enter the contest not for her treatment or to help the family, but for a better future for him. She then encourages him to live his own life and not let their family's problems hold him back. Gunn takes a few minutes to reflect on what someone else is suggesting. In the end, he decides to take the chance and enter the competition. The scene then shifts to tournament day, where he shows up filled with excitement. His father, Mr. Jung, and Soo-young also arrive to show their support and wish him luck. She then hands him a cute keychain as a lucky charm, and the two embrace. Inside, Gunn runs into Tae-ha and urges him to play fairly, but the latter is enraged upon seeing the keychain. On the first day, many gamblers are eliminated, but Gunn and Tae-ha win their rounds and remain in the competition. Later that night, Gunn is exhausted and tries to talk to his friend before falling asleep, but someone knocks on the door, and it turns out to be Soo-young. She claims that she missed him a lot and wants to spend the night with him. Gunn happily agrees and starts kissing her passionately, but soon he stops and says he needs to focus on tomorrow's game. The two then fall asleep, hugging each other. On the final day of competition, Gunn faces off against several professional poker players, winning each match. As the rounds progress, only 3 are left at the table: Tae-ha, Gunn, and an old man. Tae-ha eventually defeats the old man, setting up for a final showdown between him and our hero. Shortly after, the final round begins, and Gunn is visibly nervous because he has a lot at stake. When the two boys receive their cards, he realizes that his hand is not very promising. He suspects Tae-ha has a better hand than him, and sure enough, the latter has the winning cards. Despite the setback, Gunn remains optimistic and believes he can still win. He accurately predicts Tae-ha's moves and plans his strategy accordingly. After a very long match, he eventually defeats him and ends up winning the contest. Gunn's father and Soo-young are overjoyed by the victory, and they rejoice in happiness. Tae-ha also accepts his defeat and shakes hands with Gunn, while promising to win next time. Thanks to his victory, Gunn is now finally able to pay for his sister's bone marrow transplant. She undergoes the surgery and manages to make a full recovery. When she awakens, she finds her family by her side, and they embrace each other in tears. In the final scene, we see Gunn and Soo-young arriving at the beach, talking about their feelings. He appreciates her being there for him through thick and thin. He still doesn't understand why she likes him, but Soo-young responds that she doesn't need a reason for her feelings. The couple then kiss, and with this, the drama comes to an end.